Good morning. My name is Blake, and I got up before the sun did today to work with my plants, and so I could show y'all a little bit about this guy right here before I go to work. This is a tropical hibiscus. There are two major varieties of hibiscus that I'm aware of, and that would be tropical and hardy. Tropicals are considered annuals, and in the winter, if you are in a USDA hardiness zone where it freezes or gets below certain temperatures, these guys will die off. I am in zone 8A/8B. I'm right kind of on the boundary line there. And in East Texas where I'm at, these guys just don't make it through the winter. However, hardy hibiscus have bigger blooms, they make a bigger bush eventually, and they go dormant in the winter and come back in the spring without you having to do anything special. Now with tropical hibiscus, you can bring them inside or put them in a greenhouse in the winter. If you have them inside, you're going to need them next to really bright light, as much sun as you can get them, as close to a window as you can get them, or you're going to have to get some grow lights to keep them healthy through the colder months. You can take cuttings off of these guys and propagate them. You would cut down about 6 inches from where you have new growth. The old growth will look kind of woody. The new growth will be very green. I'll show you guys a little bit. No, I'm not going to be propagating this guy today. I'll wait until next spring to do that. But I'm hoping you guys can see the difference between this is the green here, and this is all woody from here. And that's kind of the difference I'm talking about. You have these beautiful blooms that whenever they open up, most hibiscus, they just have a single layer of petals, but this is a double blooming hibiscus, so it's almost like it has 2 or 3 blooms crammed inside of one. This will be my sister's plant. I offered to repot it for her, and this winter I'm going to take it in and take care of it, and I'll propagate it in the spring and get some clones so she and I both have some of this variety, because these double blooming ones are just, they're beautiful. Today we're going to be repotting because if you can see this, at the top layer here, there are all these roots that are visible. And whenever you can see roots at the top of your hibiscus pots, it's time to repot. They're getting crowded. It's going to have a harder time absorbing water, and it's going to pretty much start getting leggy and start dropping leaves and stop growing until you give it a chance to expand. So I've got these pots here. This is going to be a container after I mix them. This is going to be the pot that it goes in. You usually don't want to put it in a pot unless if it's about twice the size of the container. We're getting close to the end of summer, and or twice the size of the root ball, excuse me. So whenever I set this in here, I've got quite a bit of room to expand, but it's not as big as I would like it. We'll have to repot almost immediately after the growing season starts and it starts to get reestablished and healthy. But this will get us through the year. I would put it in this big one, but I mean, the root ball is going to be about this big, and this pot is like 3 to 4 times the size of the root ball. If you put a plant in too big of a pot, that soil is going to retain the moisture around the roots, and you're going to have a higher chance of pests, a higher chance of funguses, and a higher chance of diseases gathering up in that moisture in that pot. Just as well, this is not a well-draining pot. As big as it just has these teeny tiny holes, only 4 of them, for it to drain. The pot that we're putting it in has got much larger holes to allow the soil to drain. Whenever the water drains out, if you have it in a water dish, be sure to dump the water out. Don't let it sit in standing water. This is not one of those plants that you want to keep soaking wet all the time. You do want to, it's a tropical plant, and in the summer, especially if it's outside, you do want to water it once, maybe twice a day, especially in East Texas where it gets up to 112 sometimes. I'm not looking forward to that at all. we'll have to get up super early on these hot days coming up to take care of everybody that I got out here on the porch. But regardless, I think that's about it for care. You might get some slow release fertilizer in there every 30 to 50 days, just to keep everything kind of growing and rooting out and looking beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing the soil. What I have here today that we're going to put in is some Miracle-Gro potting mix. I've been using Miracle-Gro more than anything else, but I will be experimenting with a lot of new mixes and options soon. Just because, you know, just because something works doesn't mean that there isn't something that might work a little bit better, and especially something that might be a little bit cheaper. If you mix your own soil and get all the components in bulk, you're going to save a lot of money if you're making a ton of pots of plants like I do. But so we are going to use the potting mix. That has slow release fertilizer in it already, so I won't be having to fertilize anytime soon. We've got perlite. This helps keep your soil light and keeps it from compacting a little bit, and it also has moisture absorbing properties. This is also Miracle-Gro. It's the only brand of perlite I can find in my area. They usually run about $5 a bag. I don't remember how much I paid for the potting soil, but perlite is currently the main medium I use for this. There's other options that I'll get into that in another video, because I'm experimenting with a lot of different potting mixes right now. But I'm figuring it all out, so I'm not going to share that stuff with y'all until I get through the trial and error period. We got one more component to this, and that's going to be peat moss. This is Stagreen brand here, and peat moss is an organic material that will add some nutrients to this soil. Whenever you mix your soil for hibiscus, you want to be sure that you've got lots of organic material with lots of nutrients for it to absorb over time. So I'm going to mix everything in the original pot first, dump it into this one, and then we'll repot our hibiscus and get it nice and happy and growing again. There we go. So we're going to do 2 parts potting mix, 2 parts of the peat moss, and 1 part perlite. So I'm going to fill this up, not quite a third of the way, but kind of close. And I won't be using all this soil. I'm saving some for another project, so that's why I'm mixing as much as I am. But as you can see, we have got it filled up about that far. About that far right there. Next will be the peat moss. Eventually I'll have editing software and I'll be able to cut out some of this time to make my videos shorter. But for right now, I've got a 10-year-old camcorder that I'm getting this stuff on, and I just am not able to edit video yet. This is a very light soil medium, very airy. It helps keeping the soil from compacting and getting too wet and moist, just as well as those nutrients I was talking about earlier. It feels really fluffy in my hands right now. But we're gonna do 2 parts of the peat on top of the 2 parts of the potting soil. And as you can see, my container is filled up about to this point now. And now we're going to do 1 part perlite. Now perlite is very powdery and dry when it's not wet. So you want to be careful not to breathe this stuff in. Whenever I pour it out, I'm probably going to put my shirt over my nose and mouth, just because I've had to go blow this junk out of my nose in the past. But it is just this white really dry, kind of gritty material here. And I'm currently using a lot of this in my succulents and, well, just about anything that I've been potting. So I'm going to prepare for for a possible dust storm coming up. I think most of the dust is at the bottom of the bag. It's not coming up too bad this time. So we just get that all in there. I'm not going to fill it up to the top, but I'm going to get close just to keep that ratio going. Alright. And there's our perlite. We're up to that point now. And we're going to put this thing in here and we're about to get our hands dirty. There's all kind of tools you could be using to do this, but I just like getting my hands in there and really grinding it up. There's just something therapeutic about shoving your hands in dirt and trying to keep things alive. I have fallen in love with horticulture, and it's really helping me get through some transitions I'm making in my life to get healthier and try to get better relationships with myself, better relationships with my friends and family, finding people that make you grow instead of contain you. You know, friends that give you room to grow and encourage you to grow, instead of friends that are like this container, and even though you're trying to root out and become something bigger and a little more beautiful on the inside and outside, there's some people that you meet in life that just hold you back. They may not even realize they're doing it. And I'm not thinking about anybody in particular right now at all. I love all my friends and I love all my family. But in the past I've been connected with people that just were not the best for me. Alright, so we are going to start getting ready to put this in the container. And we are going to start compressing the sides here and getting ready to get this guy out. I don't know why there's duct tape on the bottom. That's weird. And once we, since it is so root bound, you're gonna see this thing, it's probably wall to wall with roots. I can't even, they're stuck to the side of the plastic. Sometimes you have to cut roots from these drainage holes in order to dislodge it, but we don't have that bad of a problem right now. It's just really compacted in there. I'm about to bang it with my fist on the ground, get it to loosen up. I can't show it, but I'm just hitting the sides of the pot with my fist against the ground like that. And we're getting closer. I can feel it giving way. We're gonna try to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Yeah, and you can see now why that was so difficult. This thing should have been repotted a long time ago, but we didn't actually buy this plant. It was given to us by the owner of a garden center. Well, I'll go ahead and say it was our granddad, mine and my sister's granddad. And what we're going to do is start breaking up some of these roots to get it ready to grow. If you don't do this when they're this root bound, it's going to think it's still contained in the pot. There's so much pressure up against these roots that it won't ever know that you repotted it. Maybe some of the roots will, but most of them won't. You see this one has wrapped all the way around the rim. I don't know if you can see this big old root here. I mean, it's just sincerely getting choked out. But now that we've got this kind of loosened up, and let's get a little bit on the bottom too. Now I am ripping some of these roots as I'm doing it, and I got some scissors here, and I might step off camera. Oh no, I've got it. I've got some soap and water. It's just a very mild soap, water and my gardening sponge all mixed up. It's hot water. And I'm going to disinfect these scissors because I used them to propagate yesterday. And you always, just like I've said in my other videos, you always clean anything that's going to make cuts on your plants or that's going to go into your soil. If you're like a water meter, you always clean off your tools before you put them in different plants. You don't want to get little boogers from one of your pots to another. So we got that all nice and dry, and I'm just going to do a little snip. And let's see. Maybe that one will go. And that one. But I'm not going to go crazy trimming these guys. I think that's about all we need right there. And let's go. Let's get this thing repotted. I've got just a little bit of soil at the bottom to boost up the height whenever I set it in. So I've got it down in there just a little bit below where I'm going to come up just a little bit higher with the new soil to cover up those old roots. And so whenever it starts getting overcrowded again, it has a little bit of soil medium on top to grow into to show us that it's root bound and needs to be repotted again. So we try to keep this plant centered and put in the soil evenly all around it. I make a mess whenever I do this. I can't be clean whenever I'm gardening. Being messy is part of the therapy, I think. But we're just going to keep on going here. I mentioned taking clones from these guys or making clones with cuttings on these guys earlier. What you would do, as I started to mention, was cut your cutting 6 inches down. You're going to prune the leaves at the bottom. You're just going to pull all the leaves off up to about 4 inches. And then you're going to cut an inch off of that 6-inch cutting at the very end. Cut an inch off the very end at an angle. Never cut straight whenever you do cuttings. Put it in a little root stimulator after you've dipped it in water. And when you're doing these things, you want to put your soil medium, make it really wet before you put your cutting in. A good soil medium for making clones is going to be I didn't write it down. I think it said sand and peat moss. So I think it was like one part peat moss and 2 parts sand for your clone cuttings. And then whenever it's done, you put it in the moist soil, water the soil real good before you put the cutting in. And then you'll put it in a really hot, humid place. Some people will tie a bag around it, and that'll help keep humidity up. I'm in East Texas. We have humidity in the air that's free. You don't need no bags outside. So I got this thing repotted. I'm going to start wrapping things up so this video doesn't get too long. But we have got one happy tropical double blooming hibiscus, and I wish these blooms were open a little bit more so you can see them. But we've got 4 blooms on one side, and hopefully we'll have some coming out on the other. We got some buds already getting ready to open up, and lots of new leaves already starting. So now that it has more room to grow, it's gonna start bushing out and looking pretty all over again. I'm really hoping that my sister enjoys this plant. I know she will. And I'm looking forward to getting to spend some time with it this winter whenever it'll go back in my care and I get to make those clones. But thanks for watching. I hope all of you are having a great morning, great evening, great afternoon, whatever it is where you're at. And I'm going to try my best to keep growing myself and my plants, and I hope you guys do the same. Y'all have a great day.